So the Tartan Tornado, Josh Taylor, becomes the newest undisputed champion, unifies all the belts at 140 pounds, knocking down Ramirez twice en route to a unanimous decision. All three judges had it 114 to 112 in favour of Josh Taylor. Let's talk about this fight. I think this fight pretty much turned out the way most people expected. I feel like in my pre-fight prediction, pretty much got everything largely correct. I predicted that it'd be Taylor winning by 1 or 2 rounds, which I think is what the judges had it. Myself personally, I would have had it 114 to 112, just like the judges, if Taylor didn't score the 2 knockdowns. But of course he did. So I think that was maybe a little bit too close, but nevertheless, we got the prediction right, which is what we need to start doing after the form we had a couple of weeks ago with the Joseph Parker, Derek Chisora card. But nevertheless, this fight, it was a good fight. I think it followed the pattern that a lot of people expected, and that was very hard fought, close rounds, but just where Josh Taylor's talent, the flashiness would kind of shine through a little bit and get him those close rounds. A lot of aggression from both guys, but more so Jose Ramirez, which is what he's kind of known for, having a lot of heart and a lot of grit and quite a good work rate as well. It was early on, we saw Josh Taylor on the outside kind of doing a good job of keeping Ramirez at a distance. I was critical of Josh Taylor's lack of an assertive jab where it has a bit more power on it, a bit more of a damaging jab. He has a fairly, he has this probing jab that he uses. For my money, he stuck to it a bit more. He was a bit more consistent with it than he has been in the past, but still lacking, the power variation. So a power jab, a right cross. So I think that's still something he has to work on. But nevertheless, he did a good job of keeping Ramirez at bay, which is certainly something you want to do against a fight like Ramirez. And there were moments where Ramirez was able to back up Josh Taylor to the ropes, and he was able to string together some nice, clean combinations. Some punches were blocked, caught on the shoulders and the elbows. Other ones landed flush. And Josh Taylor being a tall fighter, he's a big target, especially to the body, as a long, slender body that Ramirez did a good job of landing on at times. Josh Taylor seemed to, I don't want to say be stronger, but I think he was kind of able to apply his strength at the correct times. There were moments where, he'd maybe attempt to force Ramirez back, but Ramirez wasn't really giving up ground. I think he's a lot stronger than he looks. And instead, Josh Taylor would elect to roll under the shots that Ramirez would throw and move around. And he seemed to have the perfect balance of knowing when to stand his ground and knowing when to roll under shots and move laterally, as we outlined was the best thing for him. So I feel like he got his tactics pretty much spot on, Josh Taylor. And with the athleticism, with the accuracy, and just the consistency throughout, I don't think we saw Taylor fade as much as, say, compared to other fights. He was on the ball for a lot of it, and it showed. It earned him the fight. So yeah, it pretty much followed that pattern of Jose Ramirez really being outclassed, but kind of making up for it in spots by being just the general, the hard-working blue-collar fighter that we know who he is. And that obviously paid off to a degree, but then there were moments like in the 6th round where, he tried to kind of steamroll forward, and he threw this right hand, and Josh Taylor, with fairly good biomechanics, I must say, it was difficult to see the entire, his feet, his knees, his hips. I think it was just from the waist up, the camera view. He ripped a lovely pull counter, so he's slipped to his back foot to evade this right hand, and then brought himself back into the front foot with the straight left and just clocked Ramirez on the chin. Ramirez seemed to fall forwards as well. He just completely shocked him, kind of leant on Taylor as he went down. It kind of softened his blow a little bit, but nevertheless, a very damaging shot. That was in the 6th round. And then in the 7th round, Ramirez was a little bit lackadaisical in one of the clinches, and Taylor did a veteran trick and just kind of gave him a little shoulder, made some space for the backhand, and just ripped the left uppercut. Caught Ramirez bang on the chin, and then he fell backwards this time. And, you know, he looked hurt. He looked very hurt, but to Ramirez's credit, he seemed to recover, not entirely, but enough to defend himself effectively. And, you know, he had the heart as well to stay in the fight, which is very admirable. You know, you've been knocked down twice. You're in against a big guy who seems to outclass you in skill and athleticism. You know, that takes a lot of testicular fortitude. So Jose Ramirez definitely proves he has that. And of course, that was pivotal because you've now had 2 rounds in a row, 2 knockdowns in a row. And on top of that, it's a close fight. So these are typically, they make, you know, the difference in these kind of high stakes close fights. But Josh Taylor just seemed to pull away. And in the last round, when it came to it, I was thinking at the bare minimum to get a draw, Jose Ramirez would need 2 knockdowns in the 12th. Obviously, that didn't happen, and Josh Taylor was the deserved winner. So it's exciting times for Josh Taylor. He makes history. I believe he is the first British fighter to become undisputed in the 4-belt era of the ABC belts. So good on him. Congratulations. But also congratulations to Jose Ramirez. I believe this is someone who is really overachieving, given that I don't want to say he's a limited fighter, but, you know, he doesn't really have that much he can rely on. You know, he has heart, he has tenacity. Yeah, he has some decent technique, but for the most part, he's done really well for himself, given that he has fairly limited tools. It's interesting to see what happens next, because Josh Taylor, despite now being undisputed, is only, I believe this was his 18th fight. So his fights are still in the teens. Despite being, of course, a very experienced amateur, and now, of course, becoming undisputed and fighting really like, if you look at his backlog of opponents, it's very good form, and the way he's performed. And I think that maybe made the difference, because with Ramirez, he's had some good wins, but they're not like the top, you know, the top of the division wins, whereas Taylor, I think he's a bit more hardened at the elite level, and it kind of tells. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Taylor does next. Still some things I'd like him to work on technically. So there were moments where he was able to punch in between Ramirez, like I predicted he may be able to, just because he's got those tight shots. But because he doesn't fully commit and get really deep into the final position of his punch, typically with the right hook, he was still getting caught by some long looping left hands, especially by Ramirez. Nothing too damaging, but at the end of the day, it's not really what you want to see. You want to see a bit more development of the positional changes when it comes to the punches and the maneuvers in boxing. So maybe Ben Davison is the one to rectify that and just get Taylor to get a bit deeper into those positions, as I say. And it's a bit safer, because we also saw a similar thing with Ramirez, who at times was looking to do some very effective body work. But the thing is, when you're attacking the body, because the body is such a wider target than the head, it's difficult to drag your weight through it and transfer your weight from, say, the front to the back and vice versa, and get deeper in those positions. So as a result, when Ramirez was going for the body, he was getting stuck on his center line at the end of the punch. And that's when Taylor was able to catch him. So it's interesting to see what technical developments these guys would make going forward, because even though Josh Taylor especially won this fight, he still has things that opponents can exploit. I've made no secret of the fact that I thought Prograis beat Taylor, so maybe that'll be a rematch that is next. You know, does the boxing public think that that fight was close enough to warrant a rematch? It's interesting. I guess we'll find out. Or will someone come up from lightweight to face Taylor? I think I saw a headline saying that Ben Davison dismisses a fight between Teofimo Lopez and Josh Taylor. Who knows? Boxing's a strange sport. Or will Taylor just move up to 147 like Terence Crawford did? It's interesting to find out. I guess we'll find out soon. Or maybe Taylor just wants to stay at 140, you know. There's obviously a trend of fighters moving up in weight, especially in recent years. But personally, you know, there have been plenty of greats that didn't, you know. Gennady Golovkin has spent most of his career at middleweight. I know he's had a couple of catchweight fights, but his meaningful fights have been at middleweight. Marvin Hagler famously spent his entire career at middleweight. I know these are both middleweights, but you get the idea, you know. You can still be a great fighter, an all-time great fighter, staying at one weight class. But does Josh Taylor, is that interesting to him? Maybe he wants to challenge himself by fighting someone bigger. We shall see. But yeah, congratulations to both men, especially Josh Taylor making history. Jose Ramirez can probably come back, but he might want to up his game in, you know, maybe add to his boxing IQ a little bit and breathe a bit some more life into his style. Josh Taylor still has things to rectify, and we'll see if Ben Davison is the one to make those changes, make those adjustments. But nevertheless, very brief breakdown of this fight. Kind of followed the theme that we thought it would. I feel like it was lived up to the expectations that people had of it. But yeah, a great thing for boxing, because of course it gets ever more difficult trying to unify in the era of, you know, the ABC belts, you know. But nevertheless, Josh Taylor has done it. Congratulations to him, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. So yeah, thanks for watching.